I'm an engineer by trade, and what engineers do is they go and build, and they don't think a lot about storytelling. Quote by Travis Kalanick. And I'd like to challenge that today. Hi, I'm Olivia Augustin, and this is English for Engineers. Hello and welcome to the English for Engineers podcast. Quite sure you've heard the terms business English and technical English. They get thrown around a lot. But have you ever wondered what exactly those terms mean? And why, therefore, your regular school English might just not be enough? Let's start with definitions. Merriam-Webster, that's a renowned English dictionary. It's like the Duden in Germany or the Van Dalen in the Netherlands. So Merriam-Webster defines business English as follows. English as taught in non-English speaking countries in courses that emphasize its commercial rather than its cultural importance and that are normally designed to produce conversational fluency within a limited vocabulary. But what does that mean actually? It means business English courses focus on language used in a business context, such as international trade, finance, banking, or simply in an office environment. It involves a certain clarity, I would say particular vocabulary, and grammatical structures. But learning English involves much more than simply studying grammar and vocabulary. We all talk differently to our grandparents or friends than when we talk to our boss or our business partners, even in our mother language. And a WhatsApp message is written totally different from a technical report or a business report. So why is there an emphasis on non-native speakers? Often business English is the lingua franca between business partners who are both not English native speakers. And it doesn't really matter what their business is. It can be engineering, it can be global trade, can be selling fake handbags at the Trevi Fountain in Rome. And to avoid misunderstandings, business English is usually short and to the point, because we're not trying to win a Nobel Prize for Literature. Let me give you some examples. You would use the word explode instead of blow up, because phrasal words can be confusing. You would use the word use instead of utilize, because that's quite a long verb. And you would avoid idioms. Idioms are culturally based expressions that would be, in English, cut him some slack. A German example would be Hals- und Beinbruch. A Dutch example would be hard unter de riem steken. So they don't make any sense if you translate them literally. So it can be confusing to non-native speakers. Definitely was confusing to me when I heard de plank mislopen in Dutch for the very first time and all the Jan Joker expressions. So during a business English class, you will also learn about cultural differences. For example, that hierarchy is important to Austrians, but frowned upon in the Netherlands. So what about the grammar? It should be simple and effective. So save all the complicated grammatical constructions for your next novel. Easily understandable English mostly uses simple tenses. The past simple, the present simple, the future simple, and the present perfect. So words like first and then, before and after, they indicate the order of actions instead of complex grammatical structures. And I have to admit, even though I do love the endless possibilities of the 12 English verb tenses, you won't use them, or you better don't use them in your business writing. It can be utterly confusing to other non-native speakers. We want our messages to be easy to grasp because that saves time and money. So the next question, what is technical English then? What is it and why is it? So let's start with the what. What is technical English? And to be honest, that's a bit hard to pin down. Suppose you think of the tech English of a construction worker on site. It seems to be a completely different language if you compare it to an IT specialist's tech English. And in my experience, when starting to work with new clients, they mostly think I'm gonna teach them all the technical terms that they need in their profession. But I ain't no walking dictionary. Yes, I do have a background in civil engineering, but I also work with electrical engineers, process engineers, mechanical engineers. I've been working with people in food engineering and model-based systems engineering. Actually, I think I covered almost the whole STEM spectrum. That said, on the other hand, technical English often refers to quite specialized language professional use to communicate with each other, which people outside that profession don't necessarily use. And with this definition, business or medical or even legal English all contain technical English to some degree. And there have been countless studies trying to define and characterize what exactly technical English is. Almost stumbled over that tech. So there have been tons of studies that try to pin down what technical English is. And I'm going to add a list in the description of the podcast with those studies, so you have the references. Quite recently, I had an interesting discussion with Dr. Rachel Wolford, that's a friend of mine, who helps STEM researchers in the US, so native speakers, to upgrade their writing skills to get their scientific research published. And Rachel has a PhD in rhetoric and professional communication. And her definition of technical English as a native English speaker working with other native English speaking researchers in STEM is significantly different from what my non-native English speaking engineers in Europe need to get their international projects going. You might have heard the expression STEM twice now. STEM is short for science, technique, engineering, and mathematics. And everyone loves a good abbreviation, so all those people falling under those 4 definitions are just called people in STEM. So let's go on with my next question. Have you ever heard about STE? ASD-STE 100 Simplified Technical English? No? Okay, let me give you some definition and background information on that. ASD-STE 100 Simplified Technical English, or short STE, is a controlled language developed in the early 1980s to help non-native speakers of English to understand technical manuals written in English. Back then it was called the AECMA, Simplified English. So what was the goal? The goal was that non-English native speakers could understand technical manuals unambiguously. Unambiguously is just fancy schmancy for without the shadow of a doubt, proving my point here. And it was initially used in commercial aviation. Aviation is another word you might not know. It has to do with everything airplanes. And later it became a requirement for defense projects, including land and sea vehicles. And today, many maintenance manuals are written in STE. In the latest edition of the STE specification, it was version 8 from April 2021, they gave a general introduction, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, ASD Simplified Technical English, short STE, is an international specification for the preparation of technical documentation in a controlled language. STE has 2 parts. A set of writing rules, part 1, and a controlled dictionary, part 2. The writing rules are about grammar and style. The dictionary gives the general words that a writer can use. As you can guess, any document called, quote, ASD-STE 100 Simplified Technical English Specifications version 8, issued April 2021, is a long read and boring. And I fought my way through the more than 400 pages for you. So let me give you a breakdown of the essentials. So what's the difference between regular English and simplified technical English? Simplified technical English simplifies those complex rules of standard English with its 12 tenses and all the fancy literary stuff, and replaces complicated terminology with simpler synonyms. And that results in a less complex text, and it makes the documentation easier for readers to understand. Let me give you some of the rules. One of them is that you shouldn't use phrasal verbs. That means you should say start instead of turn on. You should say stop instead of turn off. Another rule would be that we stick to the 3 simple tenses: past simple, present simple, future simple. Another one is to restrict yourself to quite short sentences. They even give you a number on that. It's about 20 words per sentence. And you think that's a lot, but try it. Another rule would be to use articles a and the wherever possible. Maybe that needs some explanation. Think of the verb to stop and the noun a stop. That could be confusing if there's no article. Another rule in STE is to use separate sentences or bullet points for sequential steps rather than one long sentence. It's just easier to read, and the text is easier to skim through. So what are the benefits of STE? When using Simplified Technical English instead of regular English, a text typically shrinks by 20%. It's more repetitive, but also more clearly structured. And for technical translations, for example, manuals or for technical reports, this can significantly impact translation costs. And for users, especially non-native English speakers, STE reduces uncertainty and it makes the documentation easier to understand. Installation and maintenance becomes more reliable and predictable, and the likelihood of errors introduced by misreading the instructions. My tongue doesn't want to work along with me today. So let me repeat that whole sentence. What did I want to tell you? Oh yeah. Installation and maintenance can become more reliable and predictable because the likelihood of errors that could be introduced by misreading those instructions decreases. So fewer errors, fewer possibilities to misread a text. So let me sum up the benefits. Number 1, clear structure. Number 2, lower translation costs. Number 3, easier to understand. Number 4, increased safety. Number 5, lower risk of mistakes and errors. Who really needs it? STE is mandatory in the aviation industry and in the military. But whenever you work on international projects where it's really vital to avoid confusion between non-native speakers, some of the rules can help engineers communicate more effectively. And it helps to prevent major problems arising out of communication difficulties or misinterpretations. For example, even if you're not in aviation, you're not in military, but if you're dealing with an American client, Spanish architect, your company is a construction company, you're consulting from Austria, you have workers from Germany, but you also have calculators in Romania. So you need to have a simple English, so you have to simplify your communication, and some of the rules of STE can really help to implement that. Why did I tell you all this? The differences between business English, simplified technical English, and that vague technical English that hovers somewhere in between. I did tell you that because next time someone tells you they teach technical English, ask them what exactly they mean. And that's why I like to call this hybrid of business English, necessary tech vocabulary, and the helpful rules of STE. That's why I like to call this hybrid English for engineers. And if you wonder if your business might benefit from English for engineers as well, feel free to have a look at my website, my blog, my social media. Really feel free to check me out. And I'm also going to put a link down there at the podcast description where you can book a free consultation and get in touch with me. That was it for today, my friends. Talk to you soon. Take care of yourself.